Good day, Dr. Gordonas, and good day, classmates. So, my topic for this day is about constructing a true or false test and multiple choice test. And before we start our discussion, let's have a short game. So, what we are going to do here in this game is you are going to read the sentences that will be flashed on the screen. You are going to type T if the statement is true and F if the statement is false. You can type your answers on the Zoom chat box. So are you ready? Let's start. The first question is, true or false test is a type of binomial test? T or F? Next. Sometimes, seldom, few, and always are examples of qualifiers. Number 3. A multiple choice test has two parts, namely roots and alternatives. Number 4. In a multiple choice test, a STEM is the question or the problem that needs to be answered. And then number 5, a true or false test must be long because this tends to be true. Are you ready to check our answers? Great! So let me flash in the screen the correct answers. Here are the correct answers. Great job, classmates! Well done! Now, let me go ahead and discuss first what is a true or false test. In the true or false test, we are going to have 4 subtopics, namely, first, what is the definition of true or false test? And then second, let me discuss also the advantages and disadvantages of true or false tests. Third, we are going to study one by one what are the rules in constructing a true or false test, and then lastly, I'm going to give an example. Alright? Now, let's discuss first what is a true or false test. So, a true or false test asks a student to judge statement or a proposition, meaning to say they are going to make choices or they are going to decide which is true and which is false. So when we say true, or if the statement is true, meaning to say that the statement is presenting facts or they are stating facts. While when we say false, or if the statement is false, it is either the statement or the words in the statement contain an incorrect information, or there is a part in that statement that makes it false. So that's the difference between a true and false statement. So in this type of test, the students will make a judgment or they will make a decision if the statement that they are reading is true or if the statement that they are reading is false. So it requires judgments of yes or no, or correct or incorrect, just like what I have mentioned a while. Or true or false test is best used when a student's judgment about a fact, a principle, concept, example, or other content-based judgment is important in the learning goal. So, meaning to say, true or false test is an objective type of test because you are going, or as teachers, we are going to measure the learning or the competency or the content of the lesson that we have discussed to them. And at the same time, by using true or false test, the students can assess if they really learned the lesson that you have taught them, or there is something wrong, or if there is a misconception about the things that they have absorbed from your lesson. Let me share to you what are the advantages of using true or false tests. There are 5 simple advantages that I have enumerated out of a lot of advantages of using true or false tests. I had selected 5 common advantages. So number 1 is that is time efficient administration and scoring. So meaning to say, when we use true or false test, it is easy for us to administer it. It is time efficient, meaning to say we are going to use a short span of time in administering the test, and at the same time, we are going to easily score them, or they can easily provide their scores, or they can easily know their scores. Number 2, more information is sampled for a greater deal of content. So meaning to say, as teachers, we can ask a lot of questions so that we can test if they had already acquired the right competencies that they need to learn, or they haven't. Next, effective when assessing misconceptions and cause and effect relationships. So if as teachers, we're going to assess their misconception, or if we are going to test if they really understood it or not, true or false test is an effective way of assessing it or testing it. Number 4, relatively easy to write and to develop. So it will not take a lot of time for us teachers to construct a true or false test. And then number 5, it is easily administered to a large number of students. So we can use true or false test if we are going to let a lot of students answer it, or it is easy for us to administer a test or a true or false test in a large number of students. All right? Now let me talk about the disadvantages of true or false tests. So I had enumerated also 5 disadvantages of using true or false tests. So the first disadvantage is it measures only low level of learning, which are remembering and understanding. As we look at the Bloom's taxonomy of objectives, either the old one or the revised one, remembering and understanding are in the lowest points of the taxonomy. So meaning to say, we are just letting the students memorize, or the students are just using memorization, or they are just using their memory to test if the question is true or if the question is false. And as I can understand it, it is a form of a lower order thinking, or the students can use lots or lower order thinking skills when answering a true or false test. And then second, it needs a larger number of items to distinguish stronger and weaker knowledge levels. So let me insert the idea of the MPS, or teachers are fond of using MPS to test if what are those topics that the students really understood and what are those topics that they haven't understood because of the item analysis. So if we are going to use true or false type of test, we need a larger number of test items so that we can distinguish what are those topics that they have really understood and what are those topics that they haven't really understood. Alright? And then number 3, students have 50% chance of being correct just by chance. So this is where guessing takes place. Because in a true or false type of test, the students can just guess what is the answer. Kasi they have 2 choices, or they have just 2 choices, true or false. Right? And then number 4, may be perceived as an unfair judgment of learning. So in this one, just like what I have mentioned, the students can guess the answer if they really don't know, or if they don't have an idea about the question, they can just guess. All right? And then number 5 encourages guessing, since there are only two alternatives, which are true or false, or there are just only two choices, true or false. So basically, if they don't have an idea about the topic, or if they don't have an idea about the question, they can just guess. All right? Now, let's have the rules in constructing the true or false test, or let me discuss the rules in constructing a true or false test. All right? So here is the first rule. Do not give a hint in the body of question. So it means that if we are going to construct a true or false test, we should not give a hint, or we should not give a clue to our students, because that's what they call giveaway questions, or we are giving away the answer already to the students if we give them a hint. So that's the first rule. So let's have an example. The Philippines gained its independence in 1898, and therefore celebrated its centennial year in the year 2000. So obviously there are clues, or there are clues here, or there are hints. So the first hint here is the Philippines gained its independence in 1898, and there is also a clue that states centennial year in the year 2000. So if we are going to analyze it, and if we are going to look at the clues, the answer here in this question is false, right? Because if we are going to analyze the question, it would be 102 years, or the answer here will be 102 years, not 100 years. All right? So here, or the first rule just simply means that we should not give clue in our questions. Next, avoid using qualifiers like always, never, often, all, best, worst, and etc., because this tends to be either always true or always false. So when we say qualifiers, so these are words that restricts or limits the possibilities of a statement being true or being false. So if we are going to see, or if we are going to look at a question that contains a qualifier, so that means, or the student will have an idea that, it could be true, or it could be always true, or it could be always false. So let's have an example. So Christmas always falls on Sunday because it is a Sabbath day, or it is Sabbath day. So there is a qualifier that is used here in the sentence, and that is always. And this type of qualifier can state, or can give an idea to our student that it could be always true or always false. So here in this question, the answer is false. It's because it's not always, or Christmas is not always on Sundays. It depends on what day of the week Christmas will fall. It doesn't necessarily mean that Christmas is always on Sundays. Alright, number 3. Avoid using long sentences, as these tends to be true. Keep the sentences short. So it means to say that if we are going to construct a true or false test, we should always see to it that the sentences that we are going to use are short, because students will tend to think that if the sentence is long, then the answer is true. Or they are going to have an idea na if the sentence is long, automatically they will tell that it is true, or they will answer that it is true. So we should keep our questions concise, and we should keep our questions short. Let's have an example. Test needs to be valid, reliable, and useful, although it would require a great amount of time and effort to ensure that the test possess these characteristics. So at this example, or in this example rather, this is a true statement, or the answer here in this question is true, because all of the information that were provided here in this example is facts, or are facts rather. So there. Next, avoid trick statements with some minor misleading word or spelling anomaly, misplaced phrases, and etc. So my idea or my take about this one is that teachers are fond, or some teachers are fond of using the modified true or false, right? And some of us are using trick words, or most of the time we are misspelling the words so that our students will be tricked. Yeah? But the rule says that as much as possible, we should avoid trick statements, just like this one. The principal of our school is Mr. Alberto P. Panadero. So, if we look at the sentence, obviously, the statement is false because the word there is principal. But, if we are going to look at the context of the sentence, the word there should be principal. Alright? So, there. Next. Number 5. Avoid ambiguous statements which can be interpreted as true and at the same time false. So, when we say ambiguous, meaning to say, if we are going to read the question, it could mean things, or it could be interpreted into ways. It's either the question is true, and at the same time, the question is false. And ambiguous statements can lead into confusion to our students. Let's have an example. Verb is not an action word. Instead, it describes a word. If you look at the sentence, or if you look at the statement example, automatically we know that verb is an action word. Right? It is cliche that we know that a verb is an action word. Right? So there. So, meaning to say, if we are going to read this sentence, or if we are going to answer this sentence, automatically the answer is false. Right? So, we should avoid ambiguous statements, or we should avoid questions that will give two meanings to our students, because they could interpret it as something that is true or something that is false. Next, sub number 6. Avoid quoting verbatim from reference materials or textbooks. So as much as possible, we should avoid taking the exact words, or we should avoid quoting the exact words that is stated on their textbooks or in other learning materials that we are using, just like this example. According to your textbook, alcoholism is a disease. So meaning to say, if we are going to use, or if we are going to quote verbatim coming from their books, we are just prioritizing memorization, or we are just letting our students memorize what is the content or what is inside the book that they have. We are not prioritizing understanding. We are not prioritizing comprehension. Alright? So we should avoid quoting verbatim from our reference materials. And then last rule. With true or false questions, avoid a grossly disproportionate number of either true or false statements or even patterns in the occurrence of true or false statements. So meaning to say, if we are going to construct a true or false question, as much as possible, we should see to it that there is an equal distribution of the number of questions which will be answered true, and at the same time there is, if that, let's put it in this way, if we have 5 questions that the answers are true, then therefore in another one, or there should be 5 questions also that states or that the answer is false. Right? Alright. So that, or those are the rules in constructing a true or false question. Okay? And additional with this in number 7, because most of us teachers, we are using this kind of test making strategy. We are unequally dividing the number of questions that the answer is true and the answer is false. But we should see to it that the division of the number of the question must be equal or must be proportional. Alright? So that is, or those are the rules in constructing a true or false question. Now, let's proceed to my second topic, which is about multiple choice test. But here in multiple choice test, I'm just going to discuss 2 things. The multiple choice test, or the meaning of multiple choice test, and what are its advantages and disadvantages, because my partner, Ma'am Naval, will discuss the rules in constructing a multiple choice test. So let me discuss what is a multiple choice test. So a multiple choice test includes a statement or a question. So we need to say, if we are going to look at a multiple choice test, there is a question or there is a problem that should be answered, and then it is followed by 4 to 5 choices, but the choices varies. It depends on the person doing or constructing the test. Alright? Or the choices depends on the person or to the teacher who is constructing the test. Next, multiple choice test is composed of 2 parts. So, we believe, teachers, that multiple choice or doing a multiple choice test is a piece of cake, but it's not, because if we are going to analyze a multiple choice test, there are 2 parts. The first one is STEM, that is the question, or that is the problem that needs to be answered, and there are alternatives. So the alternatives, these are the choices that we are making, or these are the choices. And alternatives are divided into 2 parts. Let me repeat. Alternatives are divided into 2 parts, which are, number 1 is the answer, or meaning to say the correct answer. And then number 2, or the second part of the alternative, is the distractors, or the choices that is incorrect. Okay, I'll repeat. There are 2 parts of alternatives, there are 2 parts of alternatives. One is the correct answer, or the answer, and then number 2 is the distractors, or the incorrect answers. Okay? That contains the best answer to the question. So next, a well-designed multiple choice test allows testing for a wide breadth of content. So meaning to say, if we are going to construct a multiple choice test, or if we are going to construct properly a multiple choice test, we can cover a wide range of lessons and objectives, provided an objective measurement of students' ability. So from recall down to application, down to analysis and evaluation, we can have that if we designed properly, or if we constructed properly the questions in the multiple choice test. Right? Let's have the advantages of using multiple choice questions or multiple choice tests. So I have enumerated here 5 advantages, which are quick and easy to apply and score. So meaning to say, it's easy to administer and it's easy to score, or it is easy for us to identify their scores. Number 2, can cover a wide range of content, or we can have a wide depth of content, or we can ask a lot of questions, a lot of topics, or we can cover a lot of topics. Number 3, can objectively measure students' performance and achievements, because multiple choice test is not that prone of guessing, or students have a low chance of guessing, most especially if they studied hard or if they studied well the lesson, right? And then number 4, you can ask more questions, just like what I have mentioned in the second part. And then number 5, reliability and content validity are high. So meaning to say, the more questions that we ask to our students, the more reliable, the more valid the results of the questions or the results of the exam are. Alright? Next, let me talk about the disadvantages of multiple choice tests or multiple choice questions. So I had enumerated rather here in my presentation 6 disadvantages of using multiple choice tests. So number 1, may overestimate learning due to influence of guessing. So most of the time, if the students are not prepared in their exams, multiple choice tests can be also prone to guessing, but that's of a little chance. Number 2, questions often lead to testing trivial facts and bits of information. So meaning to say, we are just, sometimes multiple choice tests are testing literacy skills only, and they are focused only on facts and other information. Number 3, it only measures knowledge and remembering. Just like what I have mentioned, sometimes multiple choice tests are just limited with synthesis and evaluation, and there are times that a multiple choice test can measure lower order thinking skills, or it can just require students to use their lower order thinking skills. Okay? And then number 4, it does not improve the ability of expression. So because this is an objective type of test, they are not able to express themselves. Just they cannot express themselves. Alright? Because they have choices, or they are given choices. Number 5, the forming, organizing, and writing of questions requires time, expertise, and experience. So meaning to say, making a multiple choice test or making a multiple choice exam is not a piece of cake. It requires a lot of time, or it takes a lot of time, expertise, or subject matter expertise and experience to create or to form a well-created multiple choice test. And then lastly, most of the test time is spent on reading choices and finding the right answers. So, if we are going to look at it, or if we are going to look back during face-to-face classes, if we are giving the students multiple choice type of exam and the exam is kind of hard, they are just spending their time looking at the choices or looking at the questions and finding the right answer. So that is one of the disadvantages of multiple choice tests. Alright? So the continuation of my topic, or of the topic rather, will be discussed by Miss Naval. So here are the references that I've used in my report. Thank you for listening and God bless you all.